In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to add a new background to our composition and blend with our supercar. Hello and welcome to Inspiration Clan. We're going to build our composition by adding a new background image to our scene. We'll then use layer adjustments to correct the image to match our supercar. So let's jump straight into Photoshop. We've already got the start of our scene, which we've done in the previous lesson. So the first thing I'm going to do is just close this background group, and I'm going to rename this group Road. Now this is a group we created in the previous lesson, which is for the road and the correction of the bushes around the car. So that's perfect. So now we want to actually place a new stock image, which is our new background image. So we want to come up to File, and we want to come to Place Embedded, and we want to select the Supercar Stock 2. So that's just going to place the image into our scene. We're just going to hit enter, or you can click on this tick to place our image, and we want to move this image below the road layer. There we go. So you can see that the perspective is not correct. We need to transform this image. We need to perform some edits as well to make sure it's perfect in our scene. So I'm just going to click and drag to move this image up. There you can go. There you go. You can already see that it's looking much better there. So you got to make sure that you don't have any white bits. You want to cover the whole background. So when you're clicking and dragging, just make sure you're looking at the whole image. I'm just going to go ahead and enlarge this image slightly, just very slightly, and I'm just going to move it up there and across a little bit. So move it to where you feel is correct. I think that's looking good there. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to move this original layer back into the middle roughly, and then I'm just going to rasterize this top layer, rasterize layer, and I'm just going to rename this layer Background. Perfect. So there we go. Duplicating the original layer gives us original in our working file, so we can always revisit when we need to. The next thing we want to do is we actually want to add a lens blur to this background image, because currently it's in focus. We want the car to be the main focus. We don't want the background to be in focus. So we're just going to come up to Filter, and we're going to come to Blur, and we're going to come down to Lens. Sorry, you can see that Lens Blur is not selectable. That's because we're on this bottom layer, which is a smart object. We actually want to select this background layer, and we're going to come up to Filter, Blur, and we're going to come down to Lens Blur. This will open up the Lens Blur window, and then what we want to do in here, you can turn this on and off, so the Lens Blur will completely blur the image. If I add the radius up to 20, say, you're going to see it's really blurred. So you can see there it's quite subtle. If I turn this off, there you go, that's the original and that's blurred, but we only want this to be very subtle, so I'm going to put this down at about a 7, and yeah, that's about okay. So I'm going to select OK, and I'm just going to zoom in so you can see the difference. So you can see how sharp the car is now in comparison to the background image. That's what we want. We want the car to be the main focus and this to be slightly blurred. The next thing we want to do is we actually want to look at this background image, and we need to see if we need to correct anything in this image. So for example, we have this big vase in the center here. Now this is actually clashing with the edge of the supercar. We want to remove this vase. We don't want that to be clashing with the car. So I'm actually going to come in and remove that. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn the supercar layer off. I'm just going to duplicate the background layer by pressing Command or Control and J on my keyboard, duplicate. And I'm just going to name this vase. Let's call this clone vase actually. There we go. Now we're going to use this layer to remove this vase. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the clone stamp tool on the left hand side, opacity 100, flow 100. You can adjust the brush size using the open and close brackets on your keyboard. So now we just want to select some of this grass, and we want to actually just remove this vase here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So you hold down Alt to select an area of your image and click. That samples that area, and then you want to click and drag to paint that area over the existing image. And there we go. So let's paint that in. With your brush, you want the hardness to be 0 as well. Again at the top, I'm just going to do this nice and quickly just for the sake of this video. When you're using the clone stamp tool, you don't want it to be obvious that you've cloned another area, so think about the areas that you are cloning and just ensure that you get a realistic final result. Again, I'm just doing this quickly just to show you guys. There you go, and we actually want to remove this part up here as well. Just going to hold down Alt and sample. Again, do the same. Okay, perfect. So this is before and this is after, and let's put our car layer back on, and there we go. So you can see that's much better now that we've removed that vase. That doesn't take away from the outline of the supercar. So let's just turn that on. Perfect. And the next thing we want to do is actually correct this background image using layer adjustments. So the first thing we're going to do is actually add an exposure adjustment layer. So come down to this icon down here, the adjustment layers, and you just want to add an exposure adjustment layer. So we're going to increase the exposure so that the background image is brighter. So we're just going to change this here to about 0.7. You can see it's brighter there. Yeah, nice. It's given a good result. Leave the offset and the gamma correction. Let's go about 1.2. There we go. So let's turn that off. This is before and this is after. You can see there's much more balance now between the car and the background layer. The car has strong reflections and is a bright scene, so we need the background image to be bright as well. So there we go. Now to create a more realistic result, we're actually going to reduce the effects of this layer adjustment, this exposure layer adjustment, by making it brighter at the top where the light's coming from, and remove the adjustment down on the lower part of the background image. So we want to select our layer mask, we want to select the gradient tool, and we want to make sure we have black to transparent selected. So select OK, and then we're just going to draw on our mask roughly like that. There we go. So you can see now, for example, if I turn this off and on, so this is before and this is after. So the brighter area is up in the top right here where the sun is coming from, which is correct with the shadows on the car. Next, we're actually going to add a hue and saturation adjustment layer. The colors in this background are too intense. We need to remove some of the colors in this background, again, so that the emphasis is on the supercar. So let's go ahead and select hue and saturation adjustment layer, and then what we're going to do is go in and change each color individually. So let's go into the reds, and we're just going to reduce the reds right out there, -100. Let's go into the yellows. Sorry, let's go into the yellows, and then with the yellows, let's say we want to increase the yellow slightly, so let's go +5, change them slightly. Let's go +5 there, and about +10. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's good in the yellows. Into the greens. Now we want to change the green, so let's go +70. Let's change that. You can see that's nice there. Yeah, +70 is good. And then let's reduce the saturation there, -30. Yeah, perfect. Go into the cyans. I'm gonna change these, maybe let's have a look, +20. Yeah, change them to more blues. We need to reduce that down though, so let's go -50 roughly there. Let's have a look. Yeah, perfect. Again, the colors are starting to look a bit more washed out, which is good because we want that emphasis on the supercar. Let's go to the blues. Let's really reduce the blues out. There's lots of blues in there, and then again with the magentas, let's do the same. Reduce them out. Completely remove the saturation there. Okay, so let's turn this hue saturation on and off. So this is before. You can see the colors are bright in there, and this is after. There's more unification in the colors, and they're more washed out. Perfect. So that's looking good. And the final thing we want to do is just add a black and white adjustment layer. So let's go black and white, and then we want to set this to soft light. So come down and select soft light, and then we just want to select maximum white here, which is going to enhance the contrast a lot. So let's have a look before and after. So that's before, and this is after. Perfect. So it's much more intense, the background, the contrast is higher, which is the same as our image. You can see that the bush actually matches better our existing bush. So if I turn that off, you can see there and after, it's looking good. The last thing we want to do, just to keep our document nice and tidy, is select these 6 layers, and we just want to add them to a new group. So let's click the group icon, and we're just going to rename that background. Perfect. Always good to keep your document nice and tidy. So that is how you add a new background image to your scene and perform corrections using adjustment layers. Thank you so much for joining me in this video lesson. I will see you in the next video.